Hello, everybody. This is Mahadeva, the OG Thunder Wizard. Let me just get that thing out of the way because it's bugging me. Okay, so I'm going to continue in the same general theme as one of the most recent live streams that I did, having to do with the heart center. So, what was the title of this one? Heart center frequency is the portal to. I can't see it. I think it was the heart center frequency is a portal to higher dimensions that we can paste onto this one, which is just a clumsy way of saying upgrade to the next vibrational level of this reality. I've been binge watching the Man in the High Castle. Same idea. But instead of traveling, like escaping the one that you're in and traveling to another one, what if you could transform this one or stay in this one and move yourself up to the higher vibration? Things would stay pretty much exactly the same. Just maybe you become healthy. Maybe you become cured. Maybe you no longer have personal financial difficulties. You no longer live in a world where you feel targeted, where you feel minimized. Whatever it is that you want to escape from, what if you could transform it? Now, I've been lucky enough. I've been very lucky in my life. I've been lucky enough to have some very powerful teachers of different esoteric disciplines where I've experienced this. The African shamanic drumming tradition. If you look hard enough on my channel, you'll see videos of me playing that. I have CDs playing that. But when I teach these rhythms to people, and the idea is that every person has to play their specific rhythm, even if it's just 2 beats, has to be in exact alignment with the rest of the other rhythms, and when they all come together, because not one person can play all of them, because they're all layered on top of each other. But when you get enough people playing it, what ends up happening is it creates a vibration, and the beats are like a part of an equation. Let me make sure. Do I have the sound on? Okay, I do. The beats act like an equation, and when the equation is spelled out correctly, a portal opens. And now, the Yoruba people are well familiar with this. It's part of their culture. This is when you see people going, and the gods are mounting them and they flop around on the floor, and it's very weird and frightening to Westerners, but it's part of their life. It means that the gods have come, the ancestors have come. And when I would teach classes and we would get it right, people would get the rhythms right, you'd see people playing and they'd be looking around the room like that. And then afterwards they'd go, "Did you hear children laughing?" And somebody'd say, "No, I heard bells." And somebody said, "No, I swear I heard somebody come in the front door." "Really? I felt somebody walk past me." "No, I heard a dinosaur." People feel and hear that something from another dimension has arrived. And that's just one technique. There are other techniques. The things that I teach on the 90-day challenge is another introductory technique heading towards that. I just uploaded a video of me doing some kung fu katas, which are extremely effective self-defense, and they also do that other stuff I was just talking to you about. So there are all kinds of different tools that you can use to create that portal. So what makes the difference between the average practitioner who can do these things? They can play the music, or they can do the movements, or they can do the meditation, or they can do the ritual, or whatever their technique is. What's the difference between that person whose life doesn't fundamentally change? They experience it, they enjoy it, it gives them a sense of connection, it gives them a feeling of that there's something more than what I can see, but their life doesn't really change. What's the difference between that person and somebody who achieves what we would call enlightenment, who achieves mastery, who is, in terms of the Taoist tradition, there's the recurring legendary mythology, and many schools will even say so and so who started this is what happened to him. You hear these stories of these people who achieve the golden light body or the golden dragon body or the rainbow body or whatever words you want to use, and you'll hear that I was there and he was in the chamber and he was meditating, and I got up the next day and I came back and he opened the door and the only thing left was a pile of clothes, hair, and fingernails. Well, that's everything that was part of his body that wasn't alive stayed there, but everything else, all of the living cells translated and went to some who knows where. Some people say they're still here, they're just, you can't see them. They're walking through walls, and they're like the legend of Jesus, after his resurrection, that kind of thing. What's the difference between those of us who do this stuff and maybe we feel some things, maybe we get some enjoyment out of it, and somebody who's able to do that? Something along those lines, something on a lesser level is you don't necessarily leave three-dimensional reality, but for some reason things shift. Things shift differently with you. You walk around feeling like you don't belong and nobody loves you, and then all of a sudden you do this ritual or you do that or you do this meditation, and next thing you know, everybody's walking up to you, hey, is there something different about you? And then people come out of the woodwork, or you start making more money, or some disease magically goes away. People that were bothering you disappear seemingly off the face of the earth. What is that all about? Well, I have some ideas about that. My ideas about that are that energy, frequency, we can use the word frequency, I like that better. I was using the word energy vibration, but what I really mean is frequency. And I shared this last time in the last, I believe it was the last live one, where you could hear in the background, very famous physicist saying that, we're aware of the E equals mc squared, which is energy equals mass. It's basically what it means. Energy equals mass. There's another one, which is energy equals frequency. Then he went on to say, mass equals frequency. Everything has a frequency. This teacup has a frequency. I have a frequency. Glasses have a frequency. That's what makes them glasses. It's a frequency. That's something I definitely learned with shamanic drumming. When you get the frequency just right, guess what? The portal opens and certain deities come down. Mantras are the same way. Mantras, they do have a translation into an actual language. You can look at what the translation of the words are. But how you do them, the intonation, the pronunciation of them, that creates a specific frequency. And in times past, before the Middle Ages, the Vedic deities were not anthropomorphized, meaning that you didn't worship an idol. You would worship a yantra. So the yantra, as you know, is a diagram, right? So we could say, like on Mark Graham's thing here, we've created a yantra here with the runes and with the Ayashyomer. The Ayashyomer could be seen as a yantra. So the yantra becomes the transportation pad. And when you sit in front of the appropriate yantra for the deity that you are chanting, when you chant the mantra correctly and you do it over and over and over again, that design begins to vibrate. That design is there for a reason. It begins to unlock that design, which is a specific portal to the specific frequency of that deity, which then, if you do it long enough, you can do it correct enough, that deity will appear. And then when the deity appears, you can ask whatever you want. And this is a lot of the Vedic mythology is about the Asuras, who are like the Vanir in the Norse tradition. They're the earthly demigods they will worship Shiva or Brahma, and they'll do it for 10,000 years. And of course, they'll do it perfectly, have themselves in the exact right position. You know, they'll stand on one leg for 10,000 years and chant it continuously. And when they get that perfect, then Brahma has to appear or Shiva has to appear, and then Shiva must give them exactly what they ask for. So if they want control over the known universe, Shiva has to give it to them. And what this represents is that it's really not that you do this thing and you force this deity to give you what you want. What it really means is that the vibration is altering you. You think, I'm going to do this right and the deity is going to appear. But what if it's not that? What if it's that you fundamentally shift and vibrate to the frequency where they're at? So it looks to you like they've appeared, but you've appeared. They're sitting there and all of a sudden you appear in front of them. Whoa. Well, this person must have done something right. What do you want? And it means that you will have shifted to a place where you're able to manifest whatever it is that you want. You know, the mythology is a little confusing because they make it sound like the Asuras are these bad things and they're going to destroy the world and all that sort of thing. And, you know, that's there to teach you a lesson, but that's, in my experience, that's not really what happens. You vibrate, and then when you get there, when you've mastered it after the 5 or 10 years or however long it takes to master that to get the frequency, by the time you master it, you don't want the same thing that you wanted before. Before, if you had gotten, when you first did it, you wanted to become ruler of the world and get revenge on all of your enemies, and you wanted to stay in the White House forever, whatever it is that you think you want, and you do it right, you go, yeah, I guess that's not what I want anymore. What I want is world peace. See what I mean? So I kind of went off on a tangent. I forgot where I was originally headed for, but I think you get where I'm going with this. So what does this have to do with critical thinking? So let me once again introduce to you critical thinking. I'm here to tell you that critical thinking is absolutely essential if you want to, whatever it is you want. If you want to achieve mastery in a spiritual tradition, you want to achieve mastery in martial arts, you want to become Mr. Olympia, you want to exit the matrix, you want love in your life, you want to be a billionaire. I don't care what it is you think you want. Even when we're talking about achieving moksha, liberation, achieving Valhalla, you must have critical thinking. Critical thinking on the surface says being able to know what is true and what is false, being able to accurately understand information and come to a rational, real conclusion about whatever information is being sent to you. But really what it means is, in order to even get that, you must first know you. Knowing you means knowing all of your thoughts, your feelings, and your agendas. And the only way to know all of your thoughts and feelings and your agendas is to be willing to lose them, to not get what you absolutely think you want. So the first thing, then people miss and skip this most vital step. They go into, I don't have any feelings. They go into, I don't need anything, I'm spiritual. Well, you can't just jump straight into that. You have to be human first. And human means you have desires, you have needs, and you have wants. The question is, two questions. One is, can you achieve your desire? Is it rational? Can it be achieved? And the second one is it what you really want? Does your desire give you what you think you want? So, as you know, there's some rules to critical thinking, which are, the first one is, you realize that all human beings, including you, everybody at every moment has an emotional agenda. Every single moment. You're an emotional being. It's okay with me if you don't know what your emotional agenda is at any given time. But you have it. So you have to accept that in order for this to work. If you want to tell me, no, I'm free of desire, then either if that's true, then you don't need to be listening to me because you've now stopped becoming human. Or you're full of crap. You're lying to yourself. And it's easy to do that because we live in a society where we are shamed out of our feelings. Bear in mind, people can have really irrational, destructive feelings. So having your feelings and acting on them are two completely different things. For most people, they're not. Once they have a feeling, it's an impulse and they got to do it. But for somebody who wants to achieve this level of spiritual power and awareness, you must have the ability to completely have all of your feelings and yet then be able to have the choice whether or not you take action on the impulse or not. And that is not an easy thing to do. It's the whole reason, one of the whole reasons that we're here. So when it comes to spirituality, you want to live in peace. Is that really what you want? Do you want to live in peace, or do you want to escape your pain? You want to worship Jesus because he's full of love, or because you love the idea of him saving you from your shame and your sin? I don't have a judgment for whatever you want, because that's the first key, is you have to be willing to look at yourself in the mirror and see exactly what is there without trying to change it. Then when you look at, for instance, if your desire is, you know how I feel about Jesus, if somebody's desire is they want to worship Jesus not because they want peace and love in the world, but because they feel tremendous shame, and they want somebody else to take their guilt away so that they can be free. Well, it's okay to have that feeling. In fact, I want you to be able to go, yes, I have this feeling. I'm full of shame and fear, and I just want somebody to take it away. I can't live with this anymore. I can't live with feeling disconnected and unworthy, and I can't live with it. That's good that you can be honest about that. You can do that with me. You can't do that a lot of places, because I'll go, turn that frown upside down. You're just thinking negative. Stop doing that. It's just a feeling. You can have any feeling you want with me as long as it's honest. But then we have to analyze, why would you need somebody to take your shame and your sin away from you when all you've done is just be human? Nothing wrong with being human. So your desire's unrealistic. It's not going to get you what you think you want. So critical thinking goes, I have this desire, I have this feeling, but it's not rational. So you let yourself have the thought, and then you go to a therapist or your teacher and you work through how you came to that place. But you go, yeah, this isn't serving me. But if you don't do that, if you don't take the first step of looking at yourself, what your thoughts, your feelings, and your desires are, you won't have the ability to go, what I really want is I want somebody to take the load off of my shoulders so that I don't have to feel guilty anymore. It's all about me. It has nothing to do with world peace or saving the world, which I thought it was. No, it's about this. And I realize now that that's not accurate. So then you can let go of that. But when you let go of it, you feel better. But when you're holding on to it, it gives you safety. There's safety in your fears. There's safety in your assumptions, your beliefs. And if you are attached to the feeling of safety and control that you have with your conscious or unconscious agendas, then when I come along and say to the average Christian, for instance, I say, which would be good news, right? Because the average Christian walking around is thinking, yes, I have all these sins and God has this, every single thing I've done wrong, and basically everything is wrong, and I'm human, and humans are sinful, but so Jesus has saved me and I feel so much better. And then I come along and I say, yeah, but that's not accurate. There is no judge in the sky judging you, and Jesus never existed anyway, because there's no need for somebody else to take your sins away, because all you did was be human. Now, if they were rational, they would go, really? Oh, what a relief. They don't do that. They go, how dare you blaspheme my Jesus? Don't try and take my Jesus away from me. They need that. They need the fear. They need the guilt, because that's their identity. That's their frequency. That's the frequency that they vibrate at, and to let go of that frequency is equal to dying. Nobody wants to die. People want to live. They don't realize that dying to that then opens up far more hard drive space inside of you to vibrate on a higher and a different level, but you won't know that until you get there. And this is Odin's sacrifice. The example of Odin was that he died to himself. He died to himself so that then he could vibrate on a higher level of his higher self. All right, so now I want to take this in a slightly different direction here, and I want to address conspiracy theory mindset. A lot of people are attracted to my channel because I'm telling you these alternative things. I'm teaching you how to escape. But as you found out, I probably do not co-sign the majority of the conspiracy theories that many of you believe. Not into the flat earth theory. I don't believe that, talking about recent events, I do not believe that the election was stolen from Donald Trump. I do not believe that the pandemic was planned. I'm not a 9/11 truther. So there's more than likely, if you're coming on to my channel because you think, hey, I'm in the alternate universe and I'm a this and I'm a free thinker and I'm not part of the system and I'm not part of the this or part of the that, and hey, there's this Thunder Wizard guy and he's talking about all this stuff, and then you're going to be really disappointed when you find out I'm not going to co-sign a lot of your conspiracies. Doesn't mean I don't think conspiracies exist. They absolutely exist. There's a conspiracy to gaslight you into believing that global warming is not man-made. And there's a conspiracy with the oil companies because they make quadrillions of dollars from you driving a car fueled by petroleum. So it's real simple. People stop buying petroleum products, they go out of business, and they don't want that. So they're going to gaslight you into believing that there is a conspiracy to, snow you, and there's no real, So whenever you have a conspiracy of a the this or a the that, and there isn't a clear paper trail that can be proven, it's likely not accurate. There's a paper trail to the oil companies wanting to gaslight you into believing global warming is a scam. There's a paper trail. They have a very obvious agenda. Anybody with eyes can see it. Is there an agenda for, let's go in another direction, for beings of light to masquerade as gods and tell you you have to be reborn in order to suck the life force out of you? That is a lot harder to prove. So, we're going to have to do a lot more sleuthing to figure that out. I don't believe in that either, for obvious, for if you followed my channel, you already know that. Point I'm trying to make is that in order to be able to find out what the true conspiracies are, you have to know what your agendas are, and then we have to know what your projections are. Now, the other thing, I'll add this. If you want to be a critical thinker when it comes to, well, anything, but especially spirituality, you have to first assume everybody has an emotional agenda all the time. There's nothing wrong with an emotional agenda. You meet a beautiful girl at a bar, you want to take her home and enjoy her in a physical way. Nothing wrong with that, unless that's not what she's into. In which case, trying to make that happen, if she doesn't want that, that's a bad thing. If you're lucky, she wants that from you, and you both go and you accomplish your own agendas and accomplish the other person's by accomplishing your own. But that's not going to happen if you're not honest with yourself about what it is that you want. It's only bad if, it causes destruction and or you judge it or somebody else judges it. Right? So I don't judge anybody's agenda, even if their agenda is to do something that they know is destructive, because just having an emotional agenda to do something doesn't mean you've done it or that you're going to do it. Wanting to overturn the vote count so that your guy wins, you can have that feeling all you want. Taking action to do that, that's going to impinge on my freedom, and then it's a problem. Then I'm going to judge you. But you wanting what you want, I don't have any judgment about that. So you don't have any judgment about what you want. You know, there's been elections before when my guy didn't win, and I was okay that I didn't get what I wanted. Didn't mean I was going to go do anything to try and change it, but at least I knew. I wasn't judging myself because I wanted something different than, other half of the population. Got me? So you have to know that it's okay to have an agenda, and then you have to be clear on, what was it I was going to say? Oh, dang it. I had it right in my head and then I went on a tangent. I tend to do that. So you have to know what your agendas are. You have to know what your projections are. So having an agenda is one thing. And if you are conscious, you know what your agenda is. And then you can determine whether or not your agenda is coming from a place of fear, or if it's coming from a place that's going to cause destruction to you or somebody else. And then you realize that's not really doesn't serve me. So even though I want this, I'm also aware it doesn't serve me. You're out on, you go to a bar and you meet a beautiful woman and you have an agenda. You're going to take her home and physically enjoy her, and she doesn't want that. Then you have to be okay with that. I forget what was my point about that. You're not going to project onto her. Don't project onto her. Oh, I know she wants me. I can feel that she wants me. She's saying, I don't want you. I have to go home. No, I know you do. I know you want me. I can feel it. I mean, I want you, so you have to want me. That's projection. So if you know what your projections are, then you can figure out what's going on with your emotional agendas. So I'm starting to confuse myself, but let me just read some comments. So this was in response to, holy crap, I'm not going to read that whole thing. This is in response to Solar Eclipse 2014-2020, K2 Revenge Transformation of Your World, or Collision of Your World, or something like that. So let's see. I mean, one of the things, listen, anybody listening to me, you got to know that if you write a comment and the comment is more than one paragraph long, you're stuck in your head. You're stuck in your head because you're in conflict. There's something that I've said that stimulated you, and you're in conflict with what I'm saying, and so you're going to try and out-intellectualize me. And what it really means is you're trying to convince yourself of something irrational within you. So here's a good thing. Try and get it into one paragraph at the most, because the rest, after the first paragraph, it's all nonsense. And I'm not going to read it. Okay? So this guy's name is, well, let me take a look at his channel first. By the way, anybody leaves a good comment or bad comment, I can click on your name. And by the way, even if you erase your comment, I always see it. So I know people leave comments and then erase it. It's like, no, I still saw it. All right, so looking at his channel here. Okay, looks like a pretty good guy. I got nothing against him. And he says, question. So he's asking me a question. So the other thing is, anything you leave on a comment, either here or someplace else, the whole world sees it anyway. So, just be prepared. I may make a whole video on it. If there's something valuable in the discussion, I'm going to talk about it. If you don't want me to talk about it, don't leave a comment. So, question. He says, in a truly free society, wouldn't there be something more or less like recommendations to be followed in the sense of receiving guidance as opposed to rules? I would say that rules are meant to be broken. All right, so basically the question, he doesn't even say it. I'm going to try and see if he says it here. I think what he's talking about is the vaccine. I'm not seeing anything here. He's going on and on and on and on about freedom and a belief system and the government and the system and the blah. Just look, get to the question, please. That tells me right off the bat that you are not clear on your agendas or your projection. So I'm not going to talk about the vaccine. Let me be clear. I don't have an opinion on the vaccine yet. I'm doing my studies. There are things about it that I have serious concerns about. Not the ones that people think. It's not going to turn you into an antenna which loads you up to the 5G, and none of that. That's all nonsense and garbage. It doesn't change your DNA. None of that happens. It's messenger RNA, and if you really want to, all you have to do is just Google but you have to be able to have the trust in yourself to look at two opposing opinions and come to the truth. If you don't have the trust in yourself, then you're not going to have the ability to separate yourself from your projections. So bear in mind, any conspiracy can be real or false. I'm not denying the existence of any conspiracy. But whenever you hear yourself or somebody else use the word the system or the deep state or the media or the this or the that, what's happening is you are in projection, period, end of discussion. And so you can replace the word media, government, system, replace it with mom and dad. Now, whatever you would say about the system, if you replace it with mom and dad, I'll do it here. I haven't tried it on this guy yet, but I'll try it just to see if my theory about this works. I would say that rules are meant to be broken, so actually the, quote, leaders of our society would have more success with presenting guidance and recommendation to the free people who would actually trust and respect them to be followed at and in accordance with their own will, as opposed to imposing rules or mandating. I mean, guy can't even finish his sentence. He's a lot like me. He's really lost in his head, which means there's a huge amount of emotion. You go deep, there's probably some fear in there that's driving him. He can't stop talking. Probably smokes weed. Sorry, but this is kind of the way weed smokers think. They go off on tangents like me, even though I don't smoke weed anymore. So let's replace all of these big giant things he's using. He's not talking about anybody in particular. It's very clear he's talking about mom and dad. So imagine that this is our life, everything. And it's not just him. We all project, all of us. My projection of the universe has changed drastically. My projection of the universe is that the universe loves me and is desperately wanting me to be crazy, successful, and happy. And it's turned out to be true. I get to do whatever I want, however I want, and it's because I have this relationship with the universe where I already know that the universe is out there working hard to make me happy and keep me safe, even though there are conspiracies and crazy things going on all the time. I'm going to get absolutely everything I want. And that's my projection. Now, that wasn't my projection 30 years ago. 30 years ago, I was reading all of the same kinds of things you guys are. I believed in, like for instance, I was following Carlos Castaneda, who talks about these things called flyers, which, attach to your brain, and then they're trying to suck the life force out of you. And I believed all of that. So I did a lot of the same things I do now, but I was trying to get rid of them in my brain and them telling me what to do and the society and the system. I had the same things. If you think that I'm just some old fart and I haven't figured out any of this stuff, and if I would just educate myself and watch the videos you want me to watch, that I'd somehow come to the light of this new awareness, it's all the same stuff. It's just recycled. Everybody goes through it. But I've changed my projection. I project onto the universe something very different. So I have a very different experience of reality than people who run around with conspiracy theories. Right? So this guy's projection is the same as mine. He wants his mom and his dad to stop telling him what to do. It sounds like I'm minimizing it, but I'm not. Nobody likes to be told what to do. It's very frightening if you feel choked off. I mean, you're constantly feeling like you have to protect yourself. So let's replace the things he has in quotes that are generalized, and let's replace it with mom and dad. You'll see. I mean, there's no difference. It sounds exactly like a little kid asking mom and dad to, get off his back. So in a truly free family, wouldn't there be something more or less like recommendations from mom and dad to be followed in the sense of receiving guidance from mom and dad, as opposed to rules? I would say that rules are meant to be broken, mom and dad. So actually, mom and dad of our family would have more success with presenting guidance and recommendations to the free children who would actually trust and respect mom and dad to be followed at and in accordance with mom and dad's own will, as opposed to imposing rules or mandating us children, aka forcefully making something mandatory like taking out the trash or not smoking weed at my friend's house, that it must be followed. That is sort of going against universal creational law, mom and dad. I should be able to do whatever the hell I want. Stop telling me when to go to bed. That's all this is. Because Mike hasn't said anything yet. All he said is he feels like the system and the government and the this are telling him what to do. And it's just not true. I mean, there are some things you have to do. You have to drive on the right side of the road, and you have to carry your wallet, and you have to get a driver's license. There are some things you have to do, but I'm living proof you don't have to do anything. I projected onto the universe. The universe wants me to be happy. Well, what makes me happy is not working for somebody else and not having to do anything. I don't do anything. I spent 3 hours today with clients, but that's because I wanted to. And then I went up into my room. I have multiple rooms here. I live in this house by myself. I went up into my room and I watched a little TV, and I was going to play some video games, and I fell asleep. And then I got up, and then I went out and walked on the beach and thought about, do I want to go surfing? Yeah, it's a little windy, maybe tomorrow. And then I came back and I thought, hey, maybe I'll make a video. I have no shortage of finances, and I only do what I want. So what's the difference between me and you, Mike? Nothing. The only difference is you project onto this world that there's a society, it's not free, and they're forcing you to do this and they're forcing you to do that, and there are these rules and you can't handle the rules, man. And I don't live by any rules. Other than over here I have to drive on the left side of the street. I do have to pay my rent. Other things like that. Other than that, there's really nothing I have to do. All right. So now let me show you give you another example. Now the danger. Remember, this is all about spiritual transformation. I'm not here trying to have a discussion about whether or not there's conspiracies. There are conspiracies. Because here's what I've learned. When I get into these kinds of discussions, one of the things that people do when I start talking about critical thinking, right, which is first you assume that everybody has an agenda. You assume that everybody is projecting, including you. You then know that there are 3 questions you have to ask about any information that's coming to you. First question is, when is something 100% true and 100% false? Very rarely is anything 100% true or false. But people who talk about conspiracies go to that place all the time. They talk about the system and the deep state and the archons and the this and the that. It's always 100% black and white. And that's just not, I mean, for instance, the media. People say, you can't trust the media. Which one? There is no the media. There are a bunch of independent news stations. Some of them have journalists, some of them don't. Some of the programs on the stations that have journalists, some of them is just pure journalism, and some of them is pure opinion. Some stations are nothing but opinion, Fox News. So there isn't a the media. But when you say, I can't trust the media, that means where are you going to get your information from? You're going to get it from something you do trust, your next door neighbor, the guy you just smoked weed with. Some article you saw, because the guy's not part of the media, now all of a sudden you can trust him. So if you don't know your agendas and you don't know your projections, you won't be able to determine anything from the next 3 questions. Now, let me just go back further. Now, let's see here. Let's just get into Mike's next one. He's got another huge novel. Again, Mike, all you need is just, if you can't get more than a paragraph, you're stuck in your head, and I'm not going to read the whole thing. All I have to do is read the first sentence, by the way. Mike Congdon says, what about whistleblowers like Phil Schneider, for example? So that's all I need to know. I don't know who the hell Phil Schneider is. He says, people who come out with serious, critical, and or confidential information, oftentimes leaving their position. You spelled their wrong, T-H-E-R-E. That's not, you mean T-H-E-I-R, their position. Again, you want to be a critical thinker, being educated is a good thing. Oftentimes leaving their position or breaking oath unlawfully to bring out undisclosed information to the public eye for question and scrutiny. So the one thing Mike has done here is he's made an assumption, and he's shoving an assumption down my throat, which is he is making the assumption that Phil Schneider is a verifiable source, that he's telling the truth and that he knows what he's talking about. I don't know that. Real simple way to find out anything. Somebody throws out something, all you have to do, don't go and try and find 100 different web pages about Phil Schneider, because then I would just be told the same thing over and over again. Phil Schneider, by the way, is a man who claims to have worked as a geologist for the government in black ops in somewhere, I guess, I don't know where it was exactly, but in tunnels under the earth, and that there was this firefight between alien greys and military of NATO and the United States, and he was one of only 3 people who survived, and so he's now this whistleblower. So all I have to do is type in Phil Schneider debunked. Phil Schneider fraud. That's all I have to do. It doesn't mean I'm going to believe anything I say, but let me just give you one right here. Again, this is without me doing anything. The assumption is that Phil Schneider is a whistleblower who's giving us all this information. Well, I don't know that that's true, because I don't have an emotional agenda. I have no problem. I have zero problem believing in grays. In fact, I think I saw one once. So if somebody comes along and can show me, I will have no problem believing them. This is a whole different thing here. But bear in mind, Mike's agenda. Mike has an agenda, which is he wants to prove to me that there is a the this and a the that, and that they are lying to us. So he at some point he wants to, in this huge novel, he addresses critical thinking, and he says, yeah, critical thinking is good, but what if it's the other way around? And it's like, so bottom line is Mike has an agenda to talk me out of my position of saying, hey, listen, you can't buy into all of these conspiracy theories without first using critical thinking. Now Mike has an agenda. His emotional agenda is he wants to hold on to these things. He feels very strongly, because of his projection, because I already know that mom and dad didn't treat him the way that he wanted. Maybe mom and dad were dysfunctional. Maybe they were who knows what. He didn't get enough of something from mom and dad that made him feel unheard, unloved, unappreciated, and controlled. So since he's been, this is my assumption, I could be wrong about that, but based on, I think I have pretty good clues here that tell me that. So he now goes into the world and he projects what he really wants to say to mom and dad, but he says it to the world. The world has become his parent. The government, the deep state, the media, the educational system. If he could just replace the fill in the blank with mom and dad, then he could get to his feelings. Then if he can get to his feelings and work through his feelings, then he won't have an emotional agenda to constantly find conspiracies everywhere he goes that are preventing him from being free. Again, there's no difference between me and Mike. I'm assuming he's an American citizen. So am I. I have nothing but freedom in my life. Nobody's keeping anything from me. I get to do whatever the hell I want. And the more that I'm connected to myself, my soul, I get to live in fantasy conditions. I mean, the fantasy condition I'm living in right now. If you were to talk to me just 5 years ago, I would have been like, wow, that sounds amazing. And it's only going to get better. So there's no difference between him and me. Even if there are conspiracies, they're not affecting my life at all. But I also don't have an emotional agenda about it. I don't have a problem if there are aliens or if there aren't aliens. Mike has a problem with that. If I tell him aliens don't exist, he's going to have a problem with that. Why? Because aliens represent freedom. They represent alien, different, other worlds, other beings. And the government is trying to keep us from tapping into those other worlds and other beings. Because Mike's projection is the world is a controlling parent. So, Mike, I already know, hasn't done any real research in this because research is starting with, okay, let's find out both sides. So I just cut to the chase, and the first thing I do is I type in whatever debunked, 9/11 truther debunked. And then I look at the evidence of that. And then I look at Occam's razor. What is most likely to be true? If you don't have an agenda, meaning you don't have an attachment to what the truth is, then you're going to find out what the truth is. Because when somebody's lying and when something's not true, as Judge Judy says, if something's not true, it's very obvious. And something doesn't smell right here. So, what about whistleblowers like Phil Schneider, for example? Again, the term whistleblower is very emotionally stimulating. It's a hot button word. When you hear the word whistleblower, your first response is whistleblower. Wow, he must have something important to say. But that's an assumption. I don't know that Phil Schneider's a whistleblower. A whistleblower is somebody who has information, who is part of the government or a governmental agency or a company, and a whistleblower. Hey, so-and-so in accounting is fixing the books. They're a whistleblower. There's an assumption that they're telling the truth. So right off the bat, he's trying to shove this assumption down my throat. He didn't say, have you looked into Phil Schneider? Why don't you look him up and then tell me what you think? No, he's already making the conclusion, Phil Schneider's a whistleblower, you can trust him, that he was murdered. And that was the other thing too about him, is that supposedly he was murdered for, he's going around the country doing these things about grays and aliens. All I did is I typed in Phil Schneider debunked or fraud. And here comes up somebody who's deep into the alien conspiracy community who says, as I stated elsewhere many times before, I'm a firm believer in the reality of UFO phenomenon, and that phenomenon seems to be continued to be reported from time to time, but I do not believe in the fabricated tales of con artist Phil Schneider. And then he goes and very methodically looks at his claims and very convincingly debunks every single one of them. So right off the bat, I know that there's some controversy about this guy. And I've come to the conclusion that based on looking at both sides, that the guy was a fraud. But Mike's not going to know that because Mike has an emotional agenda based on his projection that fits into it. And so when he's at his whole point here is, he says right this, let's see. Involves a great deal. He says, but why not flip that? Okay, here he goes. I love the thought about critical thinking. Well, thank you for that. Indeed, extremely important. I agree. But why not flip that around? He wants to change the vote. He doesn't like the outcome. So he's going to flip it around. Critical thinking doesn't flip anything around. You don't flip anything around. It's not like there's critical thinking for non-conspiracies and then a different kind of flipped around critical thinking for conspiracies. There's just critical thinking. And like I said, there are conspiracies. Critical thinking has led me to the absolute conviction that there is a huge conspiracy in the deepest aspects of government and in society and in media to gaslight you into believing that global warming is not human-made. It's absolute conspiracy, right? So critical thinking brings me to that conclusion. It's not like critical thinking is somehow going to make it okay. Mike wants me to say, hey, anything that's a conspiracy theory, it's got to have some validity to it, so I'm going to give it special treatment. But that only is important if you have an emotional agenda. What does this have to do with spirituality, you're asking? I'm taking a long time to get to the heart of it. In order to be able to use the power of the heart center, which is what I am introducing, my assumption here based on my experience, the heart center is where everything happens. And when you can be in a state of emptiness, you have no agendas and no projections. It's a virtually impossible place to be, but that's the whole point of all spiritual work and meditation. Excuse me. The whole point of it is to get to the zero space. You don't believe me? There's a whole practice in Buddhism called shunyata. Shunyata just means emptiness, means zero space. And every powerful energy practice has that, to get to the space of zero. When you're in the space of zero in your heart, which is what part of you comes out of your heart? Your emotions. When you are in a zero state, doesn't mean you don't have emotions. It means you don't have an attachment or an agenda to the perhaps really intense emotions that are coming up. So if Mike were my client, which he's not, but if he were my client, my goal with him would be was first to say to him, do you want to achieve freedom? And I already know that that's Mike's thing. He wants to be free. He doesn't want people telling him what to do. So do you want to have absolute freedom? He would probably say yes. I would say good. Then the first thing we have to do is we have to search out within you your emotional agendas, unconscious emotional agendas. We have to look at your unconscious projections. Now, I didn't use that word in the beginning, and it's key. Because if you don't realize that your agendas and your projections are unconscious, you're going to have a problem. You're going to want to fight with me. And most of the time when I talk with people who are in resistance because they're attached to something on an unconscious level, it becomes about, I need to, you're trying to take away my freedom of thought. I have no interest in taking away your freedom of thought. I got into this with a flat earther who, was telling me, what about this and what about that? And I said, well, those things that you're mentioning are very easy to debunk if you just simply look at it from a science perspective. He had an easy response to that was, well, you can't trust them because NASA this. And I said, well, then it just comes down to your opinion versus mine. And there is a truth here. There is a truth. The world is either round or it's not. So this isn't up for debate. When it comes to things like that in the three-dimensional world, there is a truth. And the question is, do you want to know the truth? If you have an emotional agenda, which flat earthers do, all of them do, because they don't agree. By the way, the flat earth science, there is no one flat earth science. It's not like they have a model, what a scientists would call a working model. They don't have one. They have bits and pieces of things that they say, but some people believe this and some people believe that. But the one thing they share in common is two things. They believe the earth is flat and they believe that they are lying to us. And I'm choosing to believe in the flat earth because I don't want them telling me what to believe. So it's not a science because doesn't have one working model. It's not a science. It is an emotional reaction to the feeling of somebody in authority telling you something you don't know. And that's it. So my question to him was, do you want to know the truth or not? Because there's a truth here and it's either round or it's not. And it's not up for grabs. And he said, I have the freedom to believe whatever I want, and I don't want you telling me how to believe. That's his agenda. His agenda is he doesn't like people telling him things. He doesn't like feeling, if somebody comes to him and says that the world is round and he has difficulty seeing that, and somebody says, hey, they've been telling me that all my life. I've been in school and they said that in school, and I look around and it looks pretty flat to me, and water, the ocean out there looks pretty flat. They must be lying to us. They're doing it to us. Now, if you don't have an issue with people knowing more than you, and you're not attached to feeling like needing to protect yourself from other people telling you what to do, then you're going to go, that's interesting. Maybe it's flat, maybe it's round. I'm going to find out. And I don't care if it's flat or round. But if you've been told by them, if the majority tells you it's round, and people with a bunch of degrees behind their name, like guys in NASA, which is part of the government, and my teacher was part of the educational system, and my parents believed that the world was round, and they told me to believe the world was round, and I don't like that. I want to have my own opinion. Then you're having a childish temper tantrum inside of an adult's body. And you're not interested in knowing the truth. So when I come along and say, I believe in all that stuff too, but the world is round, then you're going to get all upset with me because I'm not letting you have your opinion. When it comes to the vote, for instance, there was an actual count. There was an actual number of votes. And that actual number of votes will result in a result. And I hear politicians, as well as the average person, saying, I personally believe. Which means they're saying, I want to have the right to have my feeling and my belief which matches my emotional agenda. And if you tell me something that's different than my emotional agenda, I'm going to feel like you're taking my power away. And what's happening on an unconscious level is that the little child in them is being beaten or shamed by their parents, which is why they have such an intense reaction to an actual thing which is just an arbitrary number. It's just an arbitrary number. It's either Donald Trump or it's some other guy as president. It's an arbitrary thing. But you have a strong attachment to Donald Trump, who says, I don't put on masks and I don't follow rules, which makes you feel like, yeah, fuck mom and dad telling me to wipe my mouth and to make my bed and get up at 8 o'clock and to go to school. I don't want to do that. That's not what's happening consciously. It's all unconscious. So if you want to get to that place in the heart center where you can handle the frequency, the intense energetic frequency that allows you to have all of your feelings. Because here's the thing. In order to get to that place where you change and you manifest reality, where you open up a portal and you go to the next level, you can't have emotional agendas or projections, but you must have all of your feelings. So I'm saying there's a possibility to be in this place where your feelings can be driving you crazy. You could feel like the world is out to get you, that mom and dad are destroying your freedom. You can have the feelings you don't trust this, you don't trust that, you're afraid of this, you're afraid of that. And the feelings when you open up the heart center and you don't have any unconscious attachments or agendas, the feelings are going to feel like they're exploding inside of you. And it's going to be horrifically frightening and painful and frustrating, and you're going to want to act out on them. But instead, you have them all and you focus them like a laser beam. You focus them like a laser beam and you just reduce them or transform all of those feelings into pure energy. When that happens, that's when magic occurs. Am I making sense? The stuff I'm going to be introducing is going to be on that level. It's going to be things that are going to take you into the energy center that surrounds the heart. So let me explain to you how that works. You have the heart center, which is your soul. Your soul is everything. Your soul is infinite power. Now you have this human identity. You have to have this human identity, otherwise your soul can't root itself into this body. It's an illusion. It's a character that you're playing. You have to play your character or you won't survive. You have to play your character, but you can't be attached to it. Unconscious emotional agendas attach you to your avatar. Unconscious emotional projections, unresolved emotional projections attach you to your avatar, which keeps you in one frequency. So what Mike doesn't realize here is even though what he wants to talk about is freedom, and what he wants me to do is not tell him to use critical thinking when it comes to things like Phil Schneider, because that's, in his experience, he thinks I'm taking his freedom away. And to him, that feels like I'm trying to take his power from him. So he wants to talk me out of that. But if he could take his intense anger towards his parents, his intense anger towards the government, his teachers who told him what to do and what to believe, if he could take all that anger and instead of trying to construct a world where they're doing it to him so he can justify his very real emotions, and if he can take those same emotions and then turn it into something and it's just pure energy, then he could manifest whatever the hell he wanted, whatever life he wanted, even if he was surrounded by alien grays and, because it's totally possible. We could end up with a government at some point that has a deep state and tells you what to do. We could end up in a scenario where grays are coming and, those things are all possible. The question isn't whether or not those things or other conspiracies are possible. The question is, what can you do to be bulletproof against all of it so that you can slip through it and it doesn't bother you? Or like me, the worst time in history in my entire life where you've got this COVID thing and you've got people who don't know the difference between news and opinion and can't figure out who won the election, and people are fighting in the street over an arbitrary number because their guy didn't win or whatever. And people have to wear masks all the time, and people are dying. 3,000 people a day are dying. 200,000 people a day are getting sick. I don't have to deal with any of that. Why? Not because I knew it was coming, because I didn't know it was coming. But I listened to my soul, and my soul said, get the hell out. Sell everything, get rid of your house, put everything in a suitcase, and go stay in Australia, even though you don't know what's going to happen. So I did. Here I am a year and a half later. I haven't had to deal with any of the garbage you guys have to deal with. My life hasn't, in fact, it's gotten better because less people have come to this part of Australia, so I don't have to deal with the crowds of tourists. I'm in heaven. And I didn't do anything except follow my soul. You want that? Drop the emotional agendas, drop the projections, but still become aware. What Mike needs to do, he doesn't realize this, and I know I'm overstepping here just for the sake of doing this, but what Mike needs to do is, instead of going on and on and on, and probably smoking weed while he's doing it, instead of going on and on and on about how they're doing it to us, whether it's the government or aliens or the school system or whomever, what Mike needs to do is he needs to remember what happened to him as a kid and cry about it. And cry over the fact that as a little kid, he wasn't seen, he wasn't loved, he wasn't accepted, he wasn't allowed to have his feelings or his experience. Because again, that is one of the main themes that happens with me whenever I try and help somebody understand who's not my student. Usually my students go along with it, but if I'm just talking with the average person and I try to point out to them, I'm hearing an unconscious emotional agenda that's skewing your perception here. They want to get into an argument about I'm trying to take their feelings away. And they're not hearing that what I'm saying is your feelings are your feelings. You can have your feelings. I'm talking about your conclusions that you're making that your feelings are skewing. So please have your feelings, but don't be attached to them. Be willing to die to them. Be willing to die. Be willing to not get what you think you want. They don't want to hear that. And again, it keeps coming back to I'm telling them how to think, I'm telling them how to feel, and then I just have to throw up my hands because it's like, okay, there's nothing to talk about here. But if Mike was my client, that's what I would say to him. I would say, listen, these things exist, but obviously you've got a serious emotional agenda here, and you've got a projection that's really bothering you. So let's focus that projection on who the real the real enemies here are, which in your mind, I'm betting are your mom and your dad. Maybe your teachers at school. And let's get you to work through that so you can be free. So you can be free of what other people think and say. You can be totally free to be able to know the difference. And even though I know that there's also a conspiracy to keep people from medicines that heal. There's a conspiracy by the drug companies, because there's money involved, to keep you sick and to keep certain treatments away from you. That's a real conspiracy. But it's real easy to see. The money trail is very easy to see. It doesn't take a genius or some whistleblower. You can just look at it and see. It's right there for everybody to see. All right, so what's coming up in this, what I'm going to be teaching coming up here soon, which I'm starting to do here. By the way, I just released phase 2 of the 90-day challenge. And for those of you who've started practicing it, you probably can feel the tremendous difference. We're starting to get into some real power here. The ability to transform your frequency, which means your perception of reality. You first have to transform you. It's not a magic pill. One of the biggest problems with the Matrix is it's a pill. Take this pill or this pill. There's no pill. It's not just swallow a pill and all of a sudden it's all gone. It's not just drink ayahuasca or smoke weed or whatever it is. I got stuck here because I realized, I'm teaching these practices. So I guess I want to backtrack a little bit. There is a magic pill. The magic pill is changing the frequency. Changing the frequency, and sometimes just by adopting a posture. It's the strangest thing. I personally am still baffled by it. You adopt a specific posture, and that starts to change your frequency. It also brings all kinds of emotions to you. And what I'm going to be getting into is what you really do with mudras. There's a reason why you see people with this mudra or this mudra or this mudra, this mudra. They do that for a very specific reason. Because each one of these points on the fingers, and even points further down the finger, points here. When you touch, if you ever see a Taoist guy, you'll see him do things like this. Like a Taoist priest, he'll be doing things like this. And you wonder, what the heck is he doing? Is he counting? He's not counting. He's touching certain things in a specific order, which stimulate different meridians in the body. Your body, since we're talking about projection, your body is a holographic projection itself. The universe out there, all of the stars and the planets, all of that is a projection of you. Now, when you don't have an emotional agenda, when you don't have an attachment or a projection, then all of the power in your body becomes available to you. All of your meridians, which are the same as the planets out there, become available to you. And that means your external world is able to mirror your internal experience. Now, you want to change the external world? Touch this finger to this finger, bring these fingers together, bring this finger together, say this, look in this direction. You stimulate this, which changes that. And then magically, these shamans are able to disappear and appear, and they do this, and so got healed, and they did that. They're at a place of zero. And whatever technique they have, whether it's chanting, whether it's drumming, whether it's mudra, whether it's physical movement, they are stimulating the meridians inside of them, which then reprograms the external projection that you're projecting out there. So the other thing I say to Mike here is that in your world, if you live in a world where all of these things are going on, guess who's projecting it? You. If you, not just Mike, but if you, meaning anybody, if you grew up in a dysfunctional home where your parents didn't love you, didn't appreciate you, didn't accept you, that created within you your frequency of I can't trust older people, I can't trust the system, there are beings of light pretending to be this. We live in a world where that, and everybody's taking this away and that, and we need to escape the matrix. Well, that's where you get to live. You're going to create that. I'll be sitting right next to you. You'll be sitting there being controlled by aliens, overlords, and the system and the government, and you might really well. They might come and handcuff you and take you off to jail. And I'll be sitting there and nothing will happen to me because my projection, my frequency is totally different. So if that's your reality, I'll give it to you. Do you want to change it? I can teach you how to do that. First step is to be able to acknowledge what your emotional agendas are, acknowledge what your projections are, or be willing to find out. You don't know? Great. I have this practice I want to share with you. It's called the 90-day challenge or celestial qigong. When you do those things, you start to then open up these meridians, which again, your body, you have control over your body. You don't have control over things outside of you. You don't have control over the government or what people think about the vote. You don't have control about any of those things. You have control over this. You can put this thumb to this finger. Now that's going to stimulate something in your system which is going to bring up an emotion. What are you going to do with that emotion? Because you're going to do this. See, I do this and I have my experience. You're going to do this and you're going to have a different experience. You might put this finger here and this finger here and Satan himself will appear. I put this finger here and this finger here and a beautiful, sexy woman in a bikini appears. Why? Because that's my projection. That's my agenda. Your agenda is to be tortured and to be controlled, and you do put this and Satan comes up and starts controlling you. And so the meditation is whatever comes up when you put this finger to this finger, or you put this hand out here, or you put this hand here, or you flip and turn this and say this, stimulating all the things inside of you. The meditation is to go, oh, I did this, and Satan appeared. Well, what is Satan telling me? He's telling you that the deep state is coming for you. That's your projection. Now you get to go, what does that mean? I do this every day. Whenever I dream, which I dream every night, even like if I'm sitting there and I'm watching TV and I start falling asleep, I'll go into a dream and I'll wake up and I'll go, wait, what did that mean? If I'm having a dream that, I'm surfing and I can't catch the wave and there's somebody on the beach, throwing hamburgers in the air, all of that has meaning. Those are all my projections. Those are all my unresolved emotional issues. And so I wake up and I write it down and I go, what the hell does that mean? I'm constantly seeking to get rid of the bad data. Before we go any further and I take questions, I'll share this one story, which I've shared before. You can look him up. This is easily one of the most powerful teachings, and I normally don't like to send people away from my channel to look at other people's channel or other teachers, but this guy you should go look for. His name is Haleakala Hulin. I don't know if I'm spelling it right or not. And he's a Huna shaman. You can go check him out. This explains everything. So he is, I guess, a psychologist. I don't remember, but he's a psychologist, and he has really wonderful abilities to help heal people of unhealable things. So in Hawaii, there was an insane asylum. And the people in the doctors and the nurses who are running the insane asylum are having to deal with these really unruly, violent patients. They're so violent they have to do things like chain them to the wall because they'll bite your throat out or they'll tear your ear off or something like that. So he goes. They call him and they say, "Hey, we've heard you had a lot of success. Can you come and work with us?" And so he checks with himself. So he goes to the place of emptiness. And when he's in the place of emptiness, which is not having an emotional agenda and not having an emotional projection, he doesn't have an agenda one way or the other. Whether he works with them or not works with them, he just goes with whatever his soul tells him when he gets to that place of emptiness. And they ask him, and his soul says, yes, you have a destiny there. Go. So he goes there. And he sits and talks with the people, and they say, yeah, we got this patient, and this guy's really horrible. I mean, he bit off some woman's ear, and this other guy's throw feces at people, and everything, we've tried everything, and we have to be cruel. We have to chain them up, and we don't want to do that. We've heard so much about you. Can you help? And he says, yes. And they go, oh, great. When are you going to be able to meet with them? He says, oh, I don't want to meet with them. Just give me their files. They go, what do you mean? How are you supposed to heal him if you're not going to meet with him? He says, look, this is the way I have to do it. I mean, if you don't want to do it this way, I understand, but this is the way I have to do it. So he says, give me their files. So they go, okay. And they just give him the files. And he goes, okay. And he leaves. And he goes into his office. I guess they gave him an office. And he'd go into his office every day and he'd flip open the file and he'd look at Joe Smith bit off a woman's ear. And then he has an emotional reaction to that. He goes, oh my God, that's horrible. What an evil, and he goes, oh, that's my emotional projection. And so he sees that as a fact, and then he starts projecting, and he starts destroying the emotional projection within him, because from his perspective, Joe Smith is just an expression, a projection of him. So if there's a Joe Smith out in the world biting people's ears off, and Haleakala, looks at that and says, that's horrible, then he has a judgment against a piece of himself. There's a piece inside of him that looks exactly like Joe Smith, who he thinks is horrible. He thinks horrible things about himself. Now, he doesn't deny that and say, no, everything's beautiful, everything's love and light. He goes, wow, I have a lot of self-directed negativity. I've got a lot of intense emotions about that. Wow. And he processes it. And so they have a mantra. They go, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. He's not talking to Joe Smith, who's biting people's ears off. He's talking to himself. He is apologizing to the part of him that's judging himself. And when he can, in his mind, get rid of that judgment he has about himself and then look at Joe Smith, who bites people's ears off, and have no judgment or projection, guess what happens? Joe Smith stops biting people's ears off. He magically gets better. But if you talk to Haleakala, he says, it had nothing to do with him. It was me. I was fixing me. This is bad data inside of me. I want to get back to emptiness. When I have bad data, I'm not in emptiness. I want to be back in that state of pure power of emptiness. So then he gets the next file. He opens that up, and it's Jane Smith. And she's throwing feces at everybody. He goes, oh my God, that's so disgusting. And she's up. I got a lot of feelings about Jane Smith. Goes through the same process. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. And then maybe he remembers things when he was a kid. And mom said this and dad said that. And some kid did this to him and he still got unresolved feelings about it. He resolves that and he loves himself through it. He gets rid of the bad data. And guess what? Jane Smith stops throwing feces at people. And then John Smith and Jane Smith get so well that they're released. And people are like, it's a miracle. How did this happen? And Haleakala Hulin says, well, of course. I mean, I fixed the bad data in me, so my projection gets better. I was reading one of his clients or students, and they asked him a question, which I get asked all the time, same kinds of thing. So what do you do when somebody outside of you, and he says, stop. Nobody's outside of you. Everything you see is inside of you. If you're looking out there and they're stealing the vote, it's because you're stealing the vote inside of you. If aliens are coming down and having shootouts with the government, which is like a conflict between freedom versus order, then that's your conflict, and you're projecting that into your environment. So the idea isn't, I know some of you are listening to me thinking, oh, all I have to do is just deny that that's happening and it'll go away. No, you're going to have all of your feelings about it. You're going to have to go deep into the feelings and work to release them. Here's the good news. You say to me, oh my God, all those feelings. But the whole point is, Mahadeva, I don't want the feelings. I want to escape the matrix. I want the pill to escape the matrix. I thought you were going to give me the secret to go into the space of love and it would all go away. And you tell me I have to have these feelings? You have no idea. These feelings are so horrible. I want to die. I know. Trust me, I know. But those feelings, as uncomfortable as they are, is pure power. So along the way, before you get to the place of pure emptiness, you get to enjoy the power. Maybe the power will turn into a psychic gift. Maybe the power will turn into healing. Maybe the power will turn into the ability to telekinesis or, traveling to other worlds. All of that fun requires power. And where do you get the power from? From all those fucked up, horrible feelings that you're trying to escape. All of those unresolved issues about your father who sexually abused you or your mother who locked you in a closet. You don't want to deal with those feelings. You want those feelings to go away. But what if all that pain, when you resolved it, then became... Imagine the power within those negative feelings was turned into power that you could use. What then? Then you'd be like, yeah, let's bring up the next horrific childhood thing and let's look at it. I want that power. You mean if, as long as it's unresolved, that's power I don't have? Then let's look at it. And then you don't care anymore. You don't care if there was a shootout between government forces and aliens under some secret base or not. You don't care whether or not Joe Biden or Trump won the election. You don't care whether the COVID virus is a plandemic or a real pandemic. You stop caring about all that stupid garbage anymore because that's always going to be there. Then you start focusing on you. You individuate. You become your own powerful person. You become invulnerable to all of it. And if there is real danger, like happened with me, your heart will tell you. Your heart will say, hey, you know what I'd like to do? I'd like to go climb Mount Kilimanjaro. And you think, I'm selfishly going to go take this trip to Mount Kilimanjaro. You get to the top of Mount Kilimanjaro and then a nuclear bomb hits your hometown. You're like, oh, holy crap. My heart was taking me away from real danger. Am I making sense? All right, I'm happy to take some questions now. Harold Dale question, when I do my ritual and or the 90-day challenge morning routine, I get terrible insomnia. Is there anything you would recommend to remedy this? Harold Dale, try celestial qigong, and or if you're not already doing it, the Hool breath. If those don't work, and it's a possibility, I'm just telling you right now, there's a possibility that will make your insomnia even worse. But the good news is it's temporary. Here's what this means. Your insomnia is, you've got a lot of feelings. You've got a lot of unresolved emotional, all that stuff. So your insides are trying to get you to zero state, and it's like these things were cemented in there. They're like frozen in there. You didn't know they were there. And now you're doing all this stuff, and it's shaking all this stuff, and it's bringing it to the surface, and it's keeping you up at night. You may not be conscious of what's going on or not. So the thing to do, here's another thing I would do, is I would journal. I would get a journal and I would just do, if you have something that you're thinking about, journal that, but you can also just do stream of consciousness. I'm sitting here because Mahadeva said I'm supposed to write a journal. Wow, my right toe is tingling. There's a dog barking. I hate my mother. Then the stuff will start coming out. And, I don't know what else to tell you. The only other thing is to stop doing it. You can do that if you want. I recommend maybe cutting back and doing it, you want to make progress on it. So those are a couple of my suggestions. I hope it helps. By the way, I've had the same experience. I haven't had it recently, but I remember when I was learning, that's what would happen. There were times when I would do it and I'd be out for 12 hours. And then there are other times I would do it and I'd be up all night and I'd only get 4 hours of sleep. It's your body and your psyche is adjusting to the energy levels. This is why I tell people, if you want this next level, like level 3, and if this Taoist tradition, which I'm going to teach, which is going to be like a real left-handed path, Taoist, magical, sorcery type of tradition, which is pure power, the most powerful thing I've ever experienced. If you want that, then you're going to have to get your nervous system prepared. This is what the 90-day challenge is about. It's about getting the nervous system prepared. So bottom line, Harold Dale, this is good. This means that it's working. It means your nervous system is waking up, and it's, it'll calm down. I don't know. I can't tell you when, but if you keep doing it, it'll calm down. So play around with it. Maybe do less. Maybe only do it every other day, or whatever you need to do. This is why people used to go into the mountains and live in a hut, so that when this kind of stuff happened, they didn't have any other responsibilities to deal with. So if they were up 2 days in a row, they would still do it, and then it would resolve itself. We can't do that. We have jobs, and well, you guys do anyway. Jobs and other things like that. So anyway, I hope that answered your question. Raymanovich question: is there a way to naturally induce sleep paralysis to have that experience? Who said that I told you anything about sleep paralysis? When did I say that you had to achieve sleep paralysis? I never said that. So I don't understand your question. I've never told you to do that. I think you're not hearing me correctly. Juan Carlos Pacheco says something that would horrify Christians. And then he says, I hope the ancestors teach you. Okay, that's not a question. Lazre Windcaller question: how do I learn how to vibrate at a similar frequency as you? 90-day challenge and celestial qigong. And then it's helpful to have a teacher. This is why I have apprentices. If you want to know the main thing that apprentices do with me, is I help them do exactly what I described. The stuff comes up because they're doing the work, and then I help them become critical thinkers, so that they're not attached to their emotional reactions, their emotional agendas, and their projections. And they'll tell you it can be really challenging, and sometimes they don't want to hear what I have to say, and they project onto me that I'm doing this or that to them, or sometimes they fall in love with me and think that I'm they should marry me, and then they start telling me how I'm telling them this and I don't do that. I mean, I just had it with my teacher just yesterday, because I'm hitting another level. And I got into it with him about how he has unconscious agendas and he's trying to do this and he needs to be more. And then after talking with him, I realized, that was all my stuff. I'm no different than you guys. Everything I'm telling you to do, it's because I have to do it. And I think that's a good thing. Any teacher out there who you can't relate to, who doesn't go through the same struggles as you, they're worthless. I mean, maybe I can't speak for everything and everybody. There's all kinds of different things. But, that's why the Buddhists say, if you see Buddha on the side of the road, kill him. Because Buddha's perfect and you're not. So you need somebody else who's not perfect. So you can know, I got to step to the left, not to step in the dog crap. Whereas Buddha just sort of floats over it. Or as he's walking up to it, the poop turns into gold. It doesn't happen for me or you. We have to step around it. So, what else? Guys in chat, question: what is the best rune to communicate with the universe? Well, there isn't one best rune. It all depends on all kinds of things. But if I had to pick one, it would be Ansuj. Ansuj is the rune of communication, specifically divine communication. Robert Seaman question: what were we before our first incarnation? Thought, energy, another beings, dwarf, or something else? My first question to you is, and I'm not discounting the question, I'll try and answer, but my first question to you is, what difference does it make? Who cares? Now, I'll answer the question. I don't know. I have taught, if you watch my video on the Voluspa, or there's a couple of, at least one or two videos where I talk about Odin, and I explained to you that Odin was a dwarf who became a god. And he didn't have to go through the human phase. But yes, according to my understanding, and it's not written anywhere specifically in the lore, but if you look at it, I think there's some evidence that says that the lore is saying that dwarves become humans. Dwarves are our lower selves, that lower selves become souls and souls become elves. So elves is what happens to a soul when it achieves its illumination. It becomes an elf, becomes an ascended master, a bodhisattva. But honestly, at this point, I don't care. And it's fun to talk about, but ultimately, how does that help us? I guess it might help us if we think that dwarves are pure emotional energy. You know, ghosts are emotional energy. You know, when you saw the video that I did of me doing that those martial art katas, those are martial art katas. There's a way of doing it. You can tweak it in just a slight way, and then it becomes pure physical self-defense. You tweak it a little bit in another direction, and it becomes this shamanic kata that you can use to fight evil spirits. Evil spirits are emotions. So if somebody's possessed by an evil spirit, it's an emotional energy. So this is, if you want to be completely bulletproof from evil, know what all of your emotional agendas and all of your emotional projections are, and then no evil spirit can find anything to grab onto, because the way evil spirits harm people, influence them, possess them, is they look for the unresolved emotional issues. They look for the projections. Listen to people who are possessed. They are paranoid. Everything is out to get them. Unresolved issues, unresolved projections. If you don't have any unresolved projections, the spirit has nothing to grab onto. But then you can take all of your emotions, and through your hands, you can go right at them, and it tears them apart. I was doing those practices once in a yoga class. This is 30 years ago, and I used to, before the yoga class, I would go off in a corner, and I would do those things. And a lot of people hated that I was doing it. It really bothered them. I didn't care. I was there for myself, and as long as I didn't bother them, you stretch, I'm going to do my practice over here. But I was doing my practice, and I was just doing one of the first movements with the hands, and one of my friends was lying down, and she bolted up, like somebody grabbed her by the head and bolted her up, and she looked over at me, and she says, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm just doing my practices." "Why?" She says, "Because whatever it is, it went right through me." And then she got up as though she was a marionette, and something pulled her straight up, and then she walked fast out the front door. She couldn't be in the same room with me. And I asked her about it later, and she says, "Yeah, you just did this thing, and my eyes were closed, and it just went right through me, and I couldn't tolerate it." Turns out she had a ghost in her house that she said she was talking to. So she had a ghost following her around. It was the ghost that couldn't handle it. So point being is that negative entities and spirits, if you want to be bulletproof from them, you have to tap into this heart center energy, which is where your emotions are. When I'm doing this stuff, all of my feelings come up. And sometimes I can barely stay in my own skin. So, I go to the gym and I lift as hard as I can just to tire myself out, and then practice and practice and practice and meditate until, because the emotions are just so intense. But I also know it's pure power. And then you get to the place where you have all the power flowing in you, and it's exciting and fun, but when you're not attached to anything, then it's just fun to have all this power. But I also know what's going to happen is at some point it's going to get rid of something inside of me, and then I'm going to have to go and call up my teacher and tell him why he's did this to me and he did that to me. And so you guys, that you do it to me, I know that's why I don't get upset with you, because I do it to my teacher. And that's why I talk you through it. And I say, I know you think that I'm doing this to you, but let's look at what the real issue is. This is what apprentices and teachers, this is really what's happening. The other stuff is just, the surface stuff. Okay, what else? Raymanovich, question, do you think Galactic Federation of Light can actually be real? So Raymanovich, again, you're new to my channel. I've seen your name, but you're relatively new. Have you read any of my books? Are you a subscriber to the Thunder Wizard? Have you done any of the other things? I'm going to venture a guess no, because I've never talked about the Galactic Federation of Light. So if I haven't talked about the Galactic Federation of Light, it's because I don't know anything about it. I have no idea. I think that most of the people who talk about the Galactic Federation of Light are nutbags, and they're lost in their own unconscious projections. Most of the people who start talking about Galactic Federation of Light are victims, and they'll tell you how they're doing it and we live on a flat earth, or something. The system and the government and the media. You could say the system, the government, the media, the Galactic Federation. So in my experience of them, leads me to believe there probably isn't a Galactic Federation of Light. But the concept I totally buy into. There is a federation, for lack of a better word, of ascended masters. This is something I can tell you. There are ascended masters. I don't care if you think they're aliens or gods or whatever. They don't care either, by the way. They could care less what you think about them. But they are looking for people whom they can channel information and practices through. They're looking for people who don't have emotional agendas, who are free from their projections, or who are conscious of them, who have the ability to be downloaded information into. And sometimes they download information into people who can't handle it. Cult leaders. There are cult leaders. I'll only name the dead ones, because I won't talk about somebody who's alive unless I guess if I find it necessary. Carlos Castaneda. Carlos Castaneda was an absolute fraud. He was a cult leader. He was destructive. He was a hypocrite. He was abusive. But his material is absolutely brilliantly channeled. He didn't live up to what he taught, but he still channeled information. Yogi Bhajan, Kundalini Yoga. He made it all up. It's all made up, all of it, but it is absolutely 100% channeled next evolution yoga. I could name more people. I believe I'm one of those people who's channeling information. And to the best of my ability, I try and hold on to my humanity. That's why I still have a teacher. And that's why I tell you guys all the time my limitations. Because I don't want to ever be on the other side of that karmic backlash. I've seen it. I've seen people who have gained real power and have channeled real crazy practices and information, and they started buying into their own hype. They started believing in what their students thought of them, and they started manipulating and taking advantage of them, and the backlash was horrific. Sometimes, this is people dying horrible deaths, kind of horrific. So I don't want that. So I'm doing my best to get rid of my false humility. I believe that what I'm going to be bringing is going to be next generation new stuff that the world hasn't seen. It's going to be building on stuff that's already been transmitted. And I have to have the humility and get over my false humility and let it out, but at the same time not buy into any of my own hype or get too bent out of shape if I start experiencing real power. Be aware that I'm still a human. I still have to take a crap and put my shoes on, and at some point, unless I achieve some kind of immortality, I will die. I'm just as human as everybody else. So what did that have to do? What were we talking about? The Intergalactic Federation of Light. They exist. I don't think they exist the way those people say they do, though. But that doesn't mean that somebody who, in my opinion, falsely projects onto the Galactic Federation of Light something that's inaccurate, that doesn't mean that they won't teach you. There's another guy on YouTube who's a Taoist magician, and he has his own tradition. And I looked into the guy. I remember when he first came onto the scene, and I looked into him, and I came to the conclusion that the guy was an absolute nutbag, fraud, nutcase. I still think he's a nutcase. But when I listened to his story, what he said is that he prayed to the, in his Taoist sect, there's the highest god and the highest goddess, and he was praying to them, and they came alive on his altar and started giving him all this information. And I was saying, that can't be possible. That guy's such a nutbag. And I felt this voice say, how do you know that? How do you know that that really didn't happen to him? I'm not saying he's not a nutbag. He clearly is. But how do you know that he didn't have a real experience? And then I realized that these beings aren't looking for perfect people. So the other thing you should know is that anybody who has power, it doesn't mean he's achieved enlightenment. I could name a few people, they're still alive, but I won't. There are people out there that people just think they're perfect, and when you dig under the surface, you find out there's sexual abuse and other cult-like stuff going on. And it's not that the person isn't a channel for brilliance and that it doesn't have incredibly powerful things to teach. It's that they're still human and they can't deal with it. They can't deal with the fame or the power or people worshiping them, and they haven't overcome their own darkness. And so, unfortunately, there's going to be some cult leaders who have real information, but they can't handle it. And they're going to come back in this life and they're going to have to deal with that. It's really serious karmic stuff there. So, anyway, let's move on. Raymond, okay, let's see. Jameson Colliday question. Previously, you mentioned the practice of Taoist wizards sitting with strong emotions and celebrating them and going to meditate on them. And when they arose, could you offer more practical explanation of how to do that? So I think I have done that. Jameson, it's just as simple as just sit down and close your eyes. You're having a lot of feelings, just sit down and close your eyes and have them. I know you want me to give you a specific thing and to do this and to do that, but it's, again, you're looking for a way to distance yourself from the feeling. You're looking for a way to control it, and that you can't control it. When you can sit with yourself and not control your own feelings, you won't have to control other people. And this is, the basic problem with all relationships. Whenever anybody comes to me, as for example, and says, yeah, my husband this and my husband that, and, and we're not getting along, and how can I get him to do this? And my first question is, can you accept him and the relationship exactly as it is? And if they say yes, I go, oh, good. You can't do anything about it. He's not going to change. That's who you get. Do you still want to work it out? Yes. Great. I'll teach you how to make it work. I'll do what I can to help you deal with it. If I say, can you accept the relationship and accept the person exactly as they are? Well, yeah, but only if then I go, no. Then the answer is no, you can't accept them. So is that right? You can't accept things as they are right now? Yeah, that's right. I can't. It's a deal breaker. All right, then you have there's only one choice. You got to leave. What? I want to control the situation. I want to tell them what to do. I want you to tell me what to say to them to get them. You can't. I mean, you can ask, and if they do it, they do it, but you can't control anything. If they don't want to get help, if they don't want to change, if that's not in their nature to give you that, there's nothing in the world you can do. So when you can sit with yourself, Jameson, when you can't change your feelings, when your feelings feel like they're killing you, and you can sit with them and love yourself and not try and change a thing, then you're learning how to be with other people and not change them when they make you feel things and you want them to do different things. So it's all about not trying to control anything and remembering that that's power. There's nothing but power there. Question part 4. EFT is momentarily helpful. Great. But the self-hatred continues to arise. Yes, so Jameson, I want you to remember this. At no point have I ever or will I ever tell you that it's all going to go away. This is what you're telling me. You said I have, all we are, by the way, is we are a consciousness that lives from one moment to the next. There's no future and there's no past. There's just the moment. So momentary help, great. You've got everything because the moment is everything. So if there was a moment where you were freed or partially freed from the discomfort, guess what? You changed reality. Think about it. There was a moment where you completely shifted to a completely different reality. You bounce back, you will, that's okay, we all do. Eventually, you get enough practice, you get to stay there. So it's about being in the moment. So you get an A+. You're expecting to do this and then it's all going to go away. If that happens, I'm happy for you. I have no reason to make that. I mean, seriously, if you can wake up tomorrow and there's never any problems, I'm totally there with you. I haven't been able to do that for myself. I still have all the same stuff, different levels, new stuff, different stuff. Some stuff goes away, new stuff shows up. This is part of being human. This is shamanism. Shamanism is a dynamic balance. It is not achieving complete enlightenment. I once had feelings and now I don't have any of them. Nope. It's a constant shift. You can't make the storms go away. We need the storms. Can't make the fires go away. We need some fires. Can't make the cold or the snow go away or the heat waves. We can't make these things go away. We need the balance. I might not like something. Being in the middle of the storm, I might not like that. But I need it, and so does the world. You need all these feelings. These feelings that, the self-hatred continues to arise. Of course the self-hatred continues to arise. How old are you? You were programmed to hate yourself. I know enough about you to know that. You know what I'm talking about. What do you expect? It's going to go away? By the way, in case people don't know what he's talking about here, the EFT thing he's referencing is EFT, the Tapper guys, they have a mantra, which is, even though I have this feeling, I thoroughly and completely accept myself. It's brilliant. That is enlightenment. If there was one mantra for enlightenment, that's it. That no matter what is going on, you completely and thoroughly accept the situation. Because the word even though I have this feeling means I'm accepting I have this feeling. Even though I have this horrific feeling, I thoroughly and completely accept myself. So self-hatred is make the feeling go away. You better stop crying. I'll give you something to cry about. And what you're doing is you're preempting your parental. When you were a kid, you preempted your parents. You didn't want them to punish you, so you showed them how to leave you alone by punishing yourself first. Even if it's internally, you think that they can feel it, and so you think by punishing yourself first, they won't punish you. And then you go into life. Now you're an adult. You just do it. So great. Every time it happens, you go, even though I have self-hatred, I completely and totally accept myself. And then you learn to parent yourself. And it'll go away. It'll eventually get better. Might take years, but it'll eventually get better. Yeah, you're just going to have to learn, Jameson. There's 3 things you got to do. You got therapy. You got to work the 12 steps of Coda and do your spiritual practice and, keep working with me. And if you keep doing that, you will have more of these experiences of judgment and self-hatred. Those won't go away, but they will slowly get better. And then you'll have more and more of those moments. Those moments will get longer and longer. But this is the whole point of discipline. And maybe in this lifetime, your karma in this lifetime is to learn discipline. Your soul said, I really want to learn spiritual discipline, living in the moment. I know, I'll pick this parent to do this and give me this unconscious issue. Because if you follow that, you will end up being the master. You'll end up telling people how to achieve that state of emptiness and freedom by living from one moment to the next. This is just Zen meditation. Whoa, there's a feeling. Wow, that's not me. Whoa, there's another feeling. That's not me either. What else? Raymanovich question, part 1. I never mentioned it before, have Asperger's condition, so you have Asperger's. Mixed with some other, because of that I can't feel any intense emotions and can't really become aware of my internal pain. Question part 2. So if you said that we need to first feel our intense emotions and then follow our soul desire, how do I do it without having intense emotions? Well, Raymond, you're above my pay grade here because I'm not a a psychologist or a psychiatrist. There's no doubt in my mind that there is some equivalent. But I'm not qualified to go there with you. So I wish I had something more to say. I don't know enough about Asperger's to give you something. So I would bring it up with your therapist and say, hey, there's this guy on YouTube. I really follow him and he says this, but I don't have emotions. How can I find out? Maybe they'll help you figure out an equivalent to that. There is an answer there for you. Here's one thing I have learned. If you commit to something, you'll find it. So if, Raymond, you commit to finding whatever the technique is that will give you the ability to tap into your soul desire, you will find it. I've worked with people that I have thought there's just no way. I mean, I've gotten off the phone. There have been people, I've worked with them for weeks, and every time I get off the phone, I'm just like, I'm this close to stopping working with them because there's just no way. But they keep at it. I give them stuff to do, and they do everything I tell them. They keep doing it, and then their life completely transforms in ways like, oh my God, I didn't even think it was going to happen. So the point is that you have to believe that you're going to find the answer. You have Asperger's, and you want to be able to find out your soul desire. You don't know the method or the technique to figure that out. You're going to find it, and you're not going to give up until you do. So you'll go through as many therapists, many teachers as you can, read as many books until you find the thing that works for you. And if you do that, you will find it. I can promise you that. Is that it? That's everybody. All right. That's it for me. This has been a good one. So the whole point of this is that the 90-day challenge. By the way, this is a great time to do this. So we're almost at the end of the month. So I recommend waiting until the first of the year. Now, I also recommend that you sign up at the yearly level, because that's the best time to do it. Because if you sign up at the yearly level 6 months into it, right, you can get you'll get charged whatever it is, and then at the end, you can still work it out with me to get the discount. We'll figure it out mathematically. But the easiest thing for me and for you is at the beginning of the year, sign up, redo your subscription or up your subscription on the thunderwizard.com Patreon site, and get it for a year. Because if you sign up for a year, you automatically get 2 months off. So 2 months you get put in your pocket, and then you don't have to take any money out for the rest of the year, and you'll have access to whatever level you've subscribed at. So do that. So in the meantime, if you're doing the 90-day challenge, keep doing it. I've just introduced level 2, as I've already said. And also, if you don't have it, get Celestial Qigong. Either get it in the lockdown package, which is going to be done with in the next few days, lockdown.thunderwizard.com. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to put all those things back up, and then I'm going to take Celestial Qigong and I'm going to make it part of the Taoist tradition, so that when new people come in, when they come in on whatever platform I use, they'll automatically start going right in with the Celestial Qigong. If you haven't got Celestial Qigong, go ahead and get started with that. And that will give you the ability to get your nervous system and your body prepared for this intense energy that we're talking about. Which will, it's really powerful stuff. Anyway, Jedi Black Knight. Question: can we do the 5-element exercise sequence alone? Yes. Yeah. I've made one of the things that I did from the beginning with all of my practices, but with the Celestial Qigong, was I knew, because I was like everybody else, I knew there were people who were going to get it. They were going to watch the video, and they were going to pick and choose whichever one they wanted. They were going to do it out of order, out of sequence. They were going to do it incorrectly. So I made sure that whatever I taught was something that could be taken as a standalone or done in different a different order. The only thing that I require you to do is to make sure that you do the close down at the end. And if it's the energy's too intense, to back off. Those are the only two things that I need you to do. Other than that, yes. And the same is true with the 90-day challenge. If you follow the 90-day challenge in the order that I've done it, I think that's the best way to get the most out of it. But I'm totally okay with you taking this piece and that piece and putting it together. Totally okay with that. Because I already know that you guys are going to do it anyway. So, it's yours to do with. And I want people to be able to do what I've done. I want people, I want you to make up your own thing. I mean, there's somebody that's followed my channel who he gave me a link to one of his videos because he really liked one of the videos. He altered it around in his own way, which I'm totally okay with. And he called it by a different name, which I'm okay with. And then he was talking about celestial qigong and that he teaches celestial qigong the cheapest. And I said, hey, if you want to teach what I've taught, if you want to replicate celestial qigong as I've taught it, and you want to sell it to somebody, go right ahead, but you got to call it by another name. And for two reasons. The lesser one is you become my competition, and I don't, and I don't really want to compete. I don't want somebody going to you and getting it from you because it's, $20 less than me. I don't want that. But the other thing is, the most important thing is that I don't want people to think that I've personally certified you to teach my system, because I haven't. And so, but if you want to replicate it, anything, because once you put something on video, I can put a copyright next to it, or I can put a trademark next to it, all I want. There's nothing that's going to stop you from taking it, turning around and teaching somebody else and creating a class and calling it, space qigong or whatever it is. Even if I walk in and go, those are the exact things, but everything I learned I got from other people. I may have added things or translated things, but the science needs to get out there. So I have no problem with people going out and teaching celestial qigong as long as they own it and say, it's now so, they're calling it whatever they call it. So that, anyway, I think I made sense to that. So point is, you can do whatever the hell you want with it. I asked this because the sequence takes much longer for me than shown in your video, but I'm unable to commit to adding more exercises. Yep, I have no problem with that. All right, that's it for me, guys. Thanks a lot. I'll see you when I see you. Happy holidays, etc., etc., etc. All right, that's it. Let's see, where am I going here? I want this.